Hello, Music Multiverse listeners. Welcome to Beyond Your Radio. I'll be your Canadian album spinning DJ now until the end of time. I haven't met a CD store nor a used one in Canada that I couldn't walk into and stay there for an entire day. Welcome to Albums from the Leaf, episode 8. That's right, there's been 7 of these, and a lot of you need to go back and watch because only 4 people have seen these. What's wrong with you, Canada? As winter claps down on us here in Canada and in the United States, I'm reminded of those cool albums that really make me feel that connection to the time, the season, and all you can do up there. From a wine tour and maybe a little chilly stroll on Niagara-on-the-Lake. Maybe you fancy the Ice Hotel in Quebec or Frosted Face in the midst of the Niagara Falls. Whatever your preference, we've got some cool albums to remind you of Canada, and maybe by the exceptional artists from the Leaf. Any genre will do, any album will do. On the panel tonight, a woman who'd love to cuddle up with a Royal Mountie, Deb Armitage Hicks Maloney, and the young drummer who's working his way to Neil Peart, one Everett James at a time. Everett
slowly.
James. The man who's back from injured reserve. Grateful dude.
Injured reserve.
And Alex Last Minute Kaluzny picked his album 14 seconds ago. And by God, is it going to be a good one? Or it might be a wreck. We'll decide.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, foreshadowing is just a talent, isn't it?
Yes. Whoa.
And you're an extra in the Austin Powers films.
Yes.
I want to see Mark as Dr. Evil. I agree.
And there was a picture of me with another Dr. Evil. I'll share it one day. She's now 16.
What now? Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Again, yes. Okay, so if you're new to the channel, surprise. We'd love for you to subscribe, please. It allows us to do these more and more often and let you know about them ahead of time. Please comment, like, and let us know what you do and how you're doing it when it's listening to music. And how to, be better with your kids.
There's a $3 million cash prize from Beyond Your Radio if you can name a thing of music that Mark can't respond to with one of the CDs behind him.
Well, there's a challenge. I'm sure you could do it.
I'd win that immediately.
Yes.
I know one.
All you gotta do
Hotter
is
Than
pick
Fish
7 country
by
albums.
Matt Hogarth.
Who?
Exactly.
He wins a $3 million.
Did he say
Yes.
Hogarth? I didn't hear what he
Hogarth.
said. Hogarth?
Hogarth College. I'm a living
I thought maybe you
prize
were,
money.
yeah, I misheard Fogarty. I wasn't sure.
Matt Fogarty. Yeah.
So
CCR.
let's start off. Why don't we start off with Alex just to blast it out.
All right. So for my album, I chose the masterful, released 2 separate years apart, depending on whether you were in Canada or the US. Albatross by Big Wreck.
Yeah.
My fondest memories, 97.7 Hits FM up in Canada, actually tipping me off to the first 2 or 3 songs of this leading up to its release. Was my first foray into Big Wreck, ironically, given their past success. So this was my gateway album. This was my...
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So credit to Iron Mike Benson and the crew, the late Iron Mike Benson. Getting me started on this. It was the same era I was discovering the Trues and a few other Canadian bands as such, which led me to going down the rabbit hole of this group, hearing the first 2 albums because I liked this one so much. What I really found with this one was it had a lot more of an edgier blues sound for rock that I thought that I was not really getting from a lot of Canadian artists at the time. Very rock heavy, but this one had a good mix of the slow and the faster tempos of songs. Where when I heard it in person before I ever listened to the album, ironically.
Oh, that's cool.
Where I was hearing them perform things off this, finding out they were off that latest album at the time, because this was upon Big Wreck's return. And then going back to the album and hearing the studio version second was obviously, this is one of the rare instances I was able to do this. And it gave me a newer appreciation for it, because live I thought it sounds great. Does it now match up going back? And I thought this did so very, very well. And when I say those slower, bluesier songs, You Caught My Eye, I thought that was one that goes with it. Albatross, for being a slower ballad, being the best song on the album, was another rare thing for me. I don't really get a song that does that for me, that pops off, and I know that was the big hit off of it anyways. But a lot of fond memories that relate back to this album. In concert, from that same concert, fun story with my mother and I. At that time, I was a sucker for photos with artists. You know, if I ever had a chance to get one with someone, I definitely did.
You still are.
Not so much. Not as
Right.
much.
No, she just meant a sucker. That's all.
Oh,
Ooh,
then
snap.
that's
So
fair.
he's usually eating a sucker. Okay.
Oh
I
yeah,
was about to say, if you
this
flash
episode,
back a few episodes, you get that. But no,
right
at
after
the time,
chips.
it was fun. So I decided wait by the side of the stage after the show, and Ian Thornley comes out. And so, with my mom being with me for that show, she was a fan as well, I asked her to take a picture of me and Ian together. She was not technically advanced. So as me and Ian are sitting there like this for what felt like a friggin' eternity, Ian finally, through his teeth next to me, goes, "Is she making a film?"
They can use it in their documentary.
Couldn't stop laughing after that. Got the photo. But I will
That's
never,
hilarious.
anytime I see my mom struggling with something technologically now, I have to remind her of Ian Thornly every single time. So
That's funny.
Hey,
small
Mom, do
connection
you
to me and
remember
the
that
band.
time?
Good memory. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Nice.
so that one I always associate, again, not only with the band, that specific album, because it was that time period of it coming out, and it was a full album that took me by surprise, is one that I like to this day.
Yeah.
job.
So my context for that album is, Ian Thornley and Big, it was Big Wreck to start with, and then Ian Thornley just became a little bit bigger than the band after the first two records.
His solo stuff's good too.
Well, that's what he was doing for those years, and that's what 11 years in between.
Yeah.
But I think
Well, he only
since
came out
then-
with 2 or 3 though.
no, he was two in between, I think, pretty much.
Yeah, it
But
wasn't
that
a lot.
11-year, that made an impact and change in the band that has grown ever since. And I know they just lost their good. He lost the close
Yeah,
guitarist, collaborator in that mix just recently over the pandemic time.
Yeah,
But
Brian
I
Doherty.
still think they've become more progressive in nature. I just reviewed Pages 1. I don't know how the heck Pages plural, but whatever. It's excellent and really well done. These are EPs, so they are taking a new standpoint. They're not going to be releasing albums, I guess. They're going to be doing EPs every year.
their
And they're
style
usually
on the newer
23 to 30
their
minutes.
style on the newer stuff, I don't know that I love it. It's strange. It's definitely a stray away. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless.
It's a
Gesundheit.
stray away. It's a stray away from their normal sound. It's not a very traditional rock sound anymore.
Well, they still have those pauses, and Jeff Young talked about it a couple of shows ago. He's talking about that echo. Big Wreck is
Yeah.
good at that echo, right? And those
Well,
kind of things.
and-
They're
and-
still there. It's more progressive rock.
and Ian's great with his vocals. It's just they've taken some risks in things that don't necessarily sound like them. Where whoever even that they've collaborated with, they've taken a few risks in sounding more like that. Like they did a song with Chad Kroeger of Nickelback, and I remember hearing it, and I'm like, this is very Nickelback hard, but Big Wreck playing it. And so like I see them kind of transforming to who they kind of collaborate with and
Interesting.
whatnot.
Yeah. Ian Thornley definitely has the last vocal of a Chris Cornell. If you're into that, if you do not know who they are,
It's
I
a
would
good
check him
scratch.
He is a chain smoker. I don't know how he sings the way he does with that. Even in between songs, he'll sing Led Zeppelin and stuff. At least the last time remember this is 11 years prior or whatever when I saw them, but yeah, still great choice. Everybody should check them out. They are a very good rock alternative, and moving progressively forward.
And dive
band.
into his solo stuff too, because it doesn't sound, I mean, obviously with his
That much
vocals, it sounds almost identical anyways. So it's a good listen.
Cool.
What does the Grateful Dude have us from Hawaii?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, it's so funny. You guys are in winter. We are too, but it's a balmy 72. What can I say? Yeah. So, okay.
Got something in
Got
your
something
eye.
in my eye.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, I have the same one. Back at you, darling.
Yeah, I went to the Finger Lakes. I brought you back something.
Yeah. Okay, so I tried to. This was very hard for me on this one because I tried to do artists that I'm familiar with. Well, we've done this thing 8 times now. I'm out of a Canadian artist that I'm familiar with. Just
I think we created this show for you.
I understand, and I appreciate that. But so I went with somebody that is a common name, even in Canada and in the United States. He's not exactly in my wheelhouse, but he's not exactly out of my wheelhouse. He's one of these that I have never liked pop rock, and my performer artist of this my pick is very pop rock. I am doing Into the Fire by Brian Adams, which I believe is his newest record. Is that right, Mark?
Well, when you did this, it is live from Royal Albert Hall.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. So what Brian Adams did is he's done all of his records in their complete at Royal Albert Hall. So there's Into the Fire, Waking Up the Neighbors, and I think one I maybe did Reckless. I haven't looked at them all. I was actually listening to that when you told me you were going to do it, and then I never finished it. But yeah, I would be. I mean, to have him do it much later, I have a problem with, because back in the day, I imagine it would have been better, because the older you get, the more you can't do what you want to do. I've been to a Brian Adams show. I had a very good time, but I'll let you give me your impression of this particular event.
I very much enjoyed it. We'll start off there. All the songs were great. A few of them I recognized just because they were on radio and those kind of things. I really liked the sound of the band that I was with. I was very impressed.
Cool.
And I kind of gravitate towards live. I always have, being the bands that are my top 5 are all ones that are famous for their live concerts and stuff. So it was great. I mean, Into the Fire, I've heard it many times and I loved it. Heated a Night, Native Son, Remembrance Day, just really good. Everything was clean. The recording was that's what can go terribly wrong in a live recording is the sound quality, but it was right up there. It made me think, and this is sometimes you listen to an album, but you do not know very much about the artist, or you've never really been introduced properly to the artist. This album really wanted me to go and listen to some more Brian Adams. So I really liked this album. I found nothing wrong with it. The acoustics of the hall, which I've been to, was fabulous. His singing was top notch. The band backing him up, who I really don't know who they are, really did a really fabulous job. I was very impressed with the whole album.
Cool. Yeah. Just to give a heads up, he did Waking Up the Neighbors, Into the Fire, and Cuts Like a Knife. Those were the 3 he did. 40th anniversary of Cuts Like a Knife. 40.
Really?
Wow.
Oh God.
Wow.
I'm old.
I'm a sucker for Brian Adams. Everything I do for you. Oh, Michael Kamen, crazy, great song. Probably one of the best songs ever written for a motion picture.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Yep.
Great songwriter. Him and what? He had a songwriter collaborator with him. Jim Balance, I think his name, Jim
Yep.
Balance. So,
But I
yeah,
was
great.
impressed. I was really
pick.
impressed.
Now I'm gonna have to go back and get started again because I was either doing dishes or I was getting ready for dinner, and I put it on, and of course it starts off with Into the Fire, and I'm like, the speaker I'm hearing it through probably not right, so I stopped after like the third song, so I have to go back.
I've never been desiring listening to him, but I've never had bad experience when I do hear him.
Right?
He's one of those
Yeah,
artists that I just
kind
don't
of feel.
venture that way.
Yeah, I feel the same
Yeah.
way, Alex. I like forgot about him, but when I hear him, I go, "Oh, I like him," or "I remember this song," or "I remember that album." But I don't go looking for him. But
Isn't
he
he?
doesn't disappoint.
I've never had a day where I've gone, you know what I really want to listen to today? Brian Adams.
You know what
Well,
Well,
I'm
there's your problem right
thinking?
there.
Was he
That
on The
happens to me
Voice?
7 days a week.
Was he on The Voice?
Brian
That
Adams?
show?
I don't think so. I don't watch it. I
Yeah,
see it
me
I
too.
don't
occasionally, but
think so.
I don't think
We-
so.
I don't know.
We like
Do you
good
know what-
music. We don't listen to it.
Do you
I
know
think
what
he was
did?
discovered long before that.
No,
wrote-
he means as
No, no.
as a
like, yeah, he was wondering. I think what Jeff was wondering is whether he was a guest on The Voice.
Was
No, I know.
anyone-
I was just
Alex is
taking.
just being sarcastic.
I was just messing with him.
I fell
Oh,
into it
okay.
too.
So it's a
Sorry.
good night. What I like about Brian
Hey,
Adams,
I got
and
your
what I
your
don't like.
sarcasm.
I love it when he's serious. I don't like it when he's quirky. The only thing that looks good on me is you. That's where you lose me. I like My Native Son, Into the Fire, those kind of
Mhm.
ballady driven. His vocal leads to that, I get it. Everybody liked that whole thing. But you know what he just did? Like I want to say about a year ago, 2 years ago, he did the soundtrack to the musical Pretty Woman. It's all him.
I could totally see him
For
doing
real?
something on the show
For real.
show
And it
tune
takes you
side.
kind of back to that feel of music. He doesn't, that's his
Interesting.
grandstand. He was,
Yeah.
I don't want to word this as bad as it's gonna sound, but I feel like he does generic very well. Like I feel like he fits that classic mold and nails it. But if
Yeah.
he strays outside it, like you're saying, like I consider doing the show tune side of things like in the classic mold.
He is very typical, very
Yes.
real pop rock. He's
Yes.
pop rock,
Is
You
he the
know?
best pop rock out of Canada? Best pop rock songwriter in Canada?
Probably not.
I don't know. That's a good It's a good discussion. Anyways, I mean,
He would be in the
level
top
pegging with
whatever
him
of a
would
list,
be,
probably.
Tom Cochran. Same kind of animal.
Yeah.
I
think he's one of those guys though. We'll argue the top. He should be in the list of top for sure.
Yeah.
Well, he is. If you were to look up, if anybody that's watching the show would go on to Google and search who are the greatest Canadians musicians of all
He's
time,
number 3.
he's going to be in the top 5, guaranteed.
I think
Yeah.
he's
Number
one. I
three,
think he's one
according
that
to Internet.
Americans forgets even Canadian.
Well,
I didn't
number
know he
one,
was Canadian until Jeff told me the other day. So, man.
Well, here's what happens. Like Celine Dion, they leave Canada. Once you leave
Yeah.
Canada, they don't consider you that Canadian. They don't have to play your music as much as they used to, right? And in Canada on the radio, they have to play a certain percentage of Canadian music, and it's high. So that's
Really?
why it gets what it does. But yeah, it's
And you're hot. You're hot.
I love the pick. I do. And you know what? Just to give a little shout back to you, Honeymoon Suite, who you did a few weeks back,
Yeah.
new album in February
Oh, cool.
called
Put that on
Alive.
my to listen list.
Yeah, cover looked good. Everett, what
Yeah.
have you brought? Speaking
Okay.
of favorite sons,
So for my first Canadian Leaf album thing, I decided to go with another person who I think should be on the top list of best folk song writers ever, not just Canada, and that is Gordon Lightfoot's Summertime Dream.
Cool.
Now, I had heard this song. I don't know how I heard it. My dad might have played it one time, but I heard the song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And that, I mean, hey, say whatever you want, but that song is just like, whoa. It's got this very, he's able to describe so much with so little words that it's almost like, how do I even understand what he's talking about? How do I understand that's what he means? And I mean, there's some serious freaking skill to that.
It's
And
a
the song,
very spooky song. Spooky.
It
yeah,
is.
yeah, and it's just got this ethereal feel to it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's visceral to me is what it is. Like you think like you're listening to this song and there's just like this slideshow going through your head of what happened each and every moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
And think of
listened to
how that came out, so that song was so many years before anybody had ever thought of the Titanic movie.
right.
But we had it in our head of what was so when you watched the Titanic and you knew the Edmund Fitzgerald song, you kind of went, oh God.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
let's
didn't mean to
get into
interrupt, but
that. No, you're
Oh.
good. No worries. So I went into this album like going like, okay, is this just gonna be one of those where it's like I like that song and then everything else I'm like could take or leave? No. Okay. I listened to this album probably 3 or 4 times over the last few days. And it's been one of the few albums recently that I've just been able to sing along, not sing along to it, but it's been caught in my head. Like what is it? Race Among the Ruins. The first track is just like so fun, it's just kind of carefree, it's happy. It does, it's just kind of going along. It's talking about running through the ruins, racing through the ruins. Oh no, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you get Edmund Fitzgerald, and then I'm Not Supposed to Care, which is just once again is just tells such a story. And how long is it even? It's in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. It tells such a story. I could go on and on for an hour about how much I just like could gush over this album, but the sound was great. The sound of his guitar is just something else. Like, and this was something that I was noticing. I was like, okay, the sounds all feel very similar, but they all sound very different at the exact same time.
so they weren't samey.
No, they weren't samey. They weren't bad samey. They were good samey.
They were good samey. Okay, good.
Yeah. They were like that kind of thing where it's familiar enough, but also new enough that you're
Yep.
comfortable listening to it, but you don't feel like you've heard it before.
I mean, and that was what, 1970 something or
76.
76. So
Oh, I thought it was older.
I knew it was 70s, and I would have thought it was
Me
earlier,
too.
but yeah, in
Right.
the 70s. But I mean, when we talk about that in that era, I mean, which Grateful Dead would be more in tune to that than I would be, but I would assume that he was in amongst the forefront kind of people delivering this style.
You had him, you had Taylor,
Mhm.
you had a lot of the you had Croce, you had a lot of them that were producing out really good, as he said, folk rock. You had a lot of the masters out during that time. The people
And
that really are known.
Is that an influencer of Jimmy Buffett then too?
I don't
No,
know.
Jimmy was a little bit different. His folk was a little bit more happier, where
Yeah.
where the Taylors and the Croces and the one Cat Stevens and people like that, they were all they were all in the same genre. Okay, basically, Buffett broke the mold. He went out completely. Was it folk? Absolutely, but it was like a happy, partying.
Right. Well, I get them in then the island side of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
just
I mean,
wondering
like,
because at that point you're looking at like when you said who you said when you stuck Croce, Buffett came to mind because when Croce died, they elevated Buffett into his spot immediately. The record label said, "Boom, you're in," because
Yeah.
we lost Croce.
Right.
So yeah, more exposure. But I just didn't know if he had.
But you,
you
you
know,
had a lot. You had a lot of them up there. If I had time to think, Cat Stevens was in there, and there was a lot of people doing that because it was really popular back then. And you're talking about the early to mid '70s, where I was
Right.
really into music a lot.
So the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald has come around again in that, well, obviously with Everett, you're going back to the original, etc. But I have heard the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald 3 times by different bands live. Who've covered
Wow.
it.
Really?
Canadian bands like the Watchmen, the Headstones. Trying to think of who the third one I heard recently was.
I heard
Not
the
quite
version
sure.
from the Headstones. I
Yeah.
thought that was very good.
Yeah, they've done Bob Dylan,
But it
covers.
wasn't as creepy. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it
Yeah,
wasn't as
so,
creepy.
Yeah.
obviously when you can take that piece, right, and have it over generations become something different. Another great example obviously is Hallelujah, right? So
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I would
Yeah.
put the Edmund Fitzgerald in the same boat as that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a
Interesting.
great choice. Everett, we kind of interrupted you. Is there
No,
anything
you're
else
good. No.
that added on? Or?
One more thing on Edmund Fitzgerald, and that's kind of like, if you can only have the time to listen to one song off this album, this one. No others compare. They're all great,
Okay.
but if you only have time for one, do this one.
You
Edmund's
can go
is
down a rabbit
classic.
hole of just that.
Yeah, you can go
Yeah.
down a rabbit hole. I watched a whole 40-minute documentary about the Edmund Fitzgerald a couple weeks ago after hearing this song.
Did you
And that's
really?
like that's the third time I've watched the same documentary. It's not a documentary, it's like a video, but it's like the whole thing. Every time I hear this song, I'm like, I'm obligated to go watch that documentary. And right.
Well, let me
That's
put you
awesome.
down another rabbit hole. The band is the
Shoot.
Frames, and the song is Fitzcarraldo.
It's Coraldo, huh?
Okay, see if you want to go down that rabbit hole. There's a documentary about they want to move a boat, but they don't want to go around the island. They're going to take it over the island, carrying it.
Well, I'll be.
You can go down
So
that.
that's sounds like a terrible idea, but whatever. There was a part in that song where it's like when things start really getting bad, and like I said, as a drummer, I was kind of like, "That's fun." I'm going to use the word fun a lot, but you're gonna have to live with that. Isn't that fun?
It is.
Yeah.
Per se.
You're fun.
And it's like,
It's a
the
samey
second
kind of
like
fun.
you get this just like massive like crash hit where it's like as the ship's going through the waves, the winds and the wires held the tattletale sounds as the waves turn the minutes to hours. Like right
Yeah.
before that, the
Yeah.
tone just totally, you could just get this. And I have only heard that in one other song, which was Goodnight Saigon by Billy Joel.
You know how he's
Oh.
doing that? He's
How?
hitting an 18 and a 22-inch ride at the same time.
I believe it.
Exact same time.
Yeah. I
For
mean,
those
it's
of you
just this.
watching, I don't know anything about music, so I have no idea what the hell you just
So
said.
18 inches is a unit of
It's-
measurement. No, just kidding.
Symbols.
They're
The
symbols.
symbol.
Like
yeah.
your hi-hat.
Oh, that's all you had to say.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
when
not
you
the
said when
hi-hat's
you
different. These are
you start
rides.
you start naming inches, and I'm like, I don't know if you were talking about
It's a
guitar, drums. I'm like, I have no.
It's
No,
just
I
a
it's-
size.
gotta go.
You could be playing the electric triangle, and I sure as shit don't know. Like,
Electric triangle. You make up
The
Alex,
electric
and-
triangle. Holy
Yeah.
cow, we've struggled. We're in a wow. Have we gone off? We're off tangent. Holy
All right,
Christ.
so I will end there with mine, and I'm gonna go work on my electric triangle. If you'll excuse
Okay,
me.
cool.
that sounds worse than what I said. Shit.
Electric slide? What? No.
Ooh, what? Where?
Ooh,
Let's hear from the
Oh,
Debs. here.
Deb, put us
Deb's
on a different track.
My
Please,
God,
save
thank
us.
God you got
Stop
me
us from
because it's
thinking.
almost tomorrow. So
haha.
the band, well, the album I chose is from a band that's beloved to me. Bare Naked Ladies. Have they been featured on The Leaf before?
Not on the Leaf,
No?
but on another program. Just talking.
But
in
not on The
general.
Leaf, right?
And not on.
Depending on your Google search, a couple websites too. We've heard a few stories about
Okay,
them from
cool.
Chef Jeff.
This band is from Scarborough. It's a suburb of Toronto. If you grew up near the border like we have, Scarborough is a different place than Toronto, but to the rest of the world, it's part of Toronto. The band formed in '88. Ed
Really,
Robertson
that
and
old?
Stephen Page were the two original band members, I believe, but they met, interesting enough, after a Gabriel concert. And then the next few weeks later, a couple months later, whatever, one of them had tickets to go see Bob Dylan and asked the other one to go. And then that started their collaboration into a band that formed several years later. They're really, if you live bands, we were talking about seeing bands live. This is a fun band to go watch. They have a comedic style that is sometimes like Benny Hill. They just use the whole stage. They're light, they're fun. There's not too much heaviness going on, at least in the beginning albums. Something happened with one of their bandmates had cancer, and they kind of got a little reflective in that time period. I believe their first album was in '91, but it didn't hit the US stage. And their first album that I ever was introduced to, and I believe was their first major release, was Gordon, and that's the album that I'm gonna review today. '92, Gordon. It was released. I was pregnant with my second child, so he was born knowing this entire album, I'm sure. I've played this album, if not 1,000 times, hundreds of times over the years. In fact, when I revisited this, oh my God, Jeff, you are the big part of my screen, and I can just see you looking at your phone. I can't look at you.
I'm trying to look
Um,
up something you said.
I want to see if you're swiping me away.
Swipe right. Right.
I never thought I would see the day we referenced Deb being on Tinder.
No.
You please swipe right and
It's
like and
nighttime,
subscribe.
Alex.
So
Swipe right, like, subscribe.
Trying to get out of
I
your
forgot
screen
what I
there.
was saying now. Where was I, Mark?
Beats me.
You were, are you
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, I got it.
Gordon.
So
All right.
yes, Gordon. So listen to this many times, hundreds of times. This album probably is about an hour long, I think, but there's 15 songs on it. There's only one song in this album that is anything that is self-reflective, I would say, and that would be What a Good Boy. And that's basically about labels being put on you as a child and how that affects you as you grow into life. And am I really a good boy? Am I a smart boy? Is he going to be a doctor when he grows up? No, I want to be in a band, and that kind of thing. But the rest of their songs starts
It's
with
fun.
Hey City. That's got a very lounge-like sound, like you can hear the trumpet with the mute on it, and heavy bass, but not bass guitar, stand-up bass, which is very unusual for a pop rock band. I would
Still to
think
this
to have
day.
somebody. What?
Still to this day.
Yep. They
So
use that. It's
I also want to say too, that song, because I've seen Stephen Page solo twice, and I've
okay.
never seen the Bare Naked Ladies as a group ever, let alone with or without him.
Mm-hmm.
His version of What a Good Boy when he does it solo, obviously I know that he was the main singer for that song because between
Right.
him and Ed,
He's
they
the
trade
writer of
off.
it too. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
him doing that song solo in a way touched me more than hearing it as part of the album, but hearing him
Really?
do it just by himself,
Interesting.
that's always stood out to me, because I think it's really the Gordon album that I've heard a lot of those songs in his solo act when he interjects them throughout
Okay.
his normal stuff. So yeah.
Interesting. I mean, because like once you get through Hey City. Then the next two songs, Enid and Grade 9. Now, grade 9 means ninth grade, but if you're not familiar with that's Canadian structure of school, people listening in the US for the first time go, grade 9, but it's just a fun song about probably every boy that's ever been in the ninth grade.
People forget, and I have to remind people of this because no one realizes it. That song was in the Mighty Ducks movies. The day Conway and Fulton skip school.
That's right.
When they're riding the roller coasters to that song.
Yeah, you're right.
Years,
I didn't remember that.
There was one
probably
time
a lot of Canadians trying to block that movie out on how it took a whole hockey.
And the way I found that out was because I remember hearing that, and I'm just like, what a fun song. Who the heck sings this? And I knew who the Bare Naked Ladies were.
But you didn't know.
This kind of sounds like that is, and I had to look it up and find out that it was in fact them. And I did not know that was on an album. I thought it was a song made for the movie. I was like,
funny. That's a good. Idea. That's now I'm gonna have to go watch the movie. Then there's songs like Brian Wilson and Yoko Ono, and that opened my kids' eyes to other pop culture people. Like, who's Brian Wilson, and why is he laying in bed, and why is he in a sandbox in his bedroom, and what's going on? And I'm like, oh well, then there was the Beach Boys. Yoko Ono, I mean, you would say that to my son and he would go, oh, that screamy Yoko Ono thing. I mean, the kid was 4 and knew who Yoko Ono was. So
I knew about that song before I knew about that song before I knew who she was to the Beatles.
Exactly. And it's funny because
I think speaking for him and myself in this, it's the era we grew up in, though, being that 92, 93 born era that we didn't know how early things reached and what music was at that point. We knew the current. And so when you hear it then, that was how we got into that side of it, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, I saw them live at the arena, I believe. I think that was probably, oh gosh, well, Chris was there. So, like I said in an earlier show, that's the first time you saw a Bare Naked Lady. What?
You remember who the opening act was?
No, I never
did. I was there.
Oh, you weren't with me, though.
No, we were. You remember?
No, I don't remember.
A band out of Boston, the drummer plays with his hands.
Don't all drummers play with their hands?
Guster. No, with his bare hands taped up. He's Gooster.
I mean, Bonham did that.
Oh my God. No, I don't remember that. Yeah. But I believe you. I saw them at Art Park, and then we also saw them at a live session in Rochester, and we got to have autographs with them. That was really cool. They are, if you've not ever listened to them, they have great harmonies.
Yes.
Great harmonies. I mean, in this album, Wrap Your Arms, great harmony. I just where you don't even realize it's happening until you re-listen to something and and I can't sing. And all of a sudden I'm singing the harmony part because I've listened to this album so many times that now I can sing the different parts.
What gets lost with this band, and it kind of ties into where they currently sit, is because I know so many people that want to go, like, I want to go see them finally, the group itself, even without Stephen Page in it. But I know so many people that are like, but without him, it's not the same. And I get that. I know for my sake, I still want to see it, but like, I think it gets lost in their goofiness how good their writing really was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, their songs are, they tell stories in their own way, right?
And I was a big Stunt fan. If I was going to pick my album, it would go to that for some of the more obvious reasons and more familiar songs. But I think like that album led me to Gordon in this case. But they're such a masterful band in the sense of how they played so well off each other. And honestly, like, it is a shame that they weren't able to reconnect it. And seeing them do even that just little small sliver of a reunion performance for the Junos together in recent years, that it just gives you that hope that like there was a chemistry within that group musically where
Yeah.
maybe it was lacking away from that, given the things that happened, that you just yearn for. Like that was a special band for it, and I don't think a lot of people, for how much they might know the Bare Naked Ladies, because they've heard One Week in a department store one time walking around in the 2000s, but
I tell you, I did that. I am an absolute expert.
Well, my
but I
problem with
can
the-
tell you, like, it was a masterful band. Like it really is underrated, and I think it all gets swept under by how comedically funny they also were, which I think just adds that much more of a special element to them, because not a lot of people can pull that off. So
what
it
really
plays into
makes
it.
me mad about them is that I wanted to see them really bad, never had a chance. They played Honolulu in 2008. I flew over there, got a hotel room and everything. That day of the concert, about 4 hours before the concert, they canceled.
They got snowed in.
Oh, I was
No, they
in
were
Honolulu.
no, actually not. One of them got really sick in California. So
I was
and,
gonna say that Jeff got sold the wrong Bare Naked Ladies show, if you catch my
Yeah.
drift.
well,
Got the wrong
The kind you've seen in Vegas a time or two.
Yeah.
now I know. I should have known when they were the tickets for
Hey.
$800 a piece. So
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Goes to see the Bare
Yep.
Naked Ladies. He gets the Chippendales instead.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Okay, I forgot what I was saying. Okay.
It's okay.
Um,
You're at
no,
about,
but-
maybe you're on the new
Yep.
kid on the block now, or is that where you're at?
Well, what I was going to say also, because Alex had said, going, how he went back, to this album after hearing other Bare Naked Ladies albums. I mean, even him referencing Grade
Just the
9
one,
and
just
being
the
in
one.
the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Well, they're, if you recall in Grade 9, that could introduce somebody to something of another Canadian rock band, because there are riffs in there from Rush's Tom Sawyer in Grade 9.
Mm.
And
So
I
they met
had
Neil
forgotten it.
Peart during the recording, too,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And then the one song, I was dying laughing because I forgot that this was on the album King, the King of Bedside Manor. That is slapstick Benny Hill-esque, just fun, just like they're using some kind of slide whistle and stuff going on. It's so good. The one song for you, Everett, it's called I Love You. Not that I'm saying I love you, but I do. I'm getting to know you. You're part of my
Aw.
crew. But a
Getting
lot
to
of
know
hi-hat in that,
you.
lot of hi-hat in that song. There's some hi-hat, and I thought of you, and I thought I'd bring that
Aw.
out. And then where are you going? Then Box Set has like Latin and salsa. I mean, they're all over the place. So
Right.
as I was re-listening for the 1,000th time, I thought of you again, Everett, because
Aw.
you would have loved this flow, because it wasn't samey. It was,
All
you
right.
heard one song and yes, it was another Bare Naked Ladies song, but it was completely different. It just so much fun. And then, of course, the hit off the song was $1 Million.
Yeah.
And that's what introduced America to just how fun they could be. And I know every single word to that song. And Chris and I had done that karaoke, great karaoke group. You can do a lot of their songs karaoke and sound
100%.
good. And so obviously I'm excited about this album, and I think everybody should listen. And it drove Chef Jeff away. Where'd he go?
I'm going to assume he needed to get comfortable again.
Second,
There he is.
second bonus that Beyond Your Radio will offer you: if you can sing the line in Bare Naked Ladies song One Week of, and mind you, not the same album, I know,
I know.
but gonna get a set of better clubs, gonna find the kind with tiny nubs. I can't even say it out
I
loud
know.
right now, let alone try to sing it. If you can even do that even remotely
The
clean,
1 week one?
Mark will send you a free t-shirt.
There you
Okay,
go.
I'm going to
Right.
practice.
Practice what everybody
I'm
said.
gonna
you
You
practice.
already have a
Chinese chicken?
t-shirt.
Yeah,
Chickadee
we'll give them
China, the
yours that
Chinese
I never
chicken
gave you.
eaters taking you bring them to-
Just to give something back on this record, because you can look it up on Wikipedia, which interesting thing is after they had some difficulty recording the King of Bedside Manor, it was suggested to the band to strip naked, to do the song naked so they could get rid of whatever the hell was going on. And so they did.
Really?
And they believe that is the result of the being naked had this top over the top nervous energy to it. So sometimes in the studio should stay in the studio, right?
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about. I mean, they've done things all over the years. I will tell you this: I believe they would be an interesting catalog review show, which we haven't done any more this year because of time and energy, and we're going to try to move those into next year and figure out our schedules. That would be an interesting one because their catalog is so it's deep. But I'm probably the only one on the panel who's listened to all the new records. And I believe that reflectiveness, even in comedy, is interesting. You know,
Okay.
they're sort of being comedic, but they're sort of being nostalgic. And one of the songs in the new album In Flight talks about how it's not cool to be like them anymore because you can't say what you want to say.
Love
Can't
it.
make fun of people anymore. Can't
Love it.
pick at that stuff. And I'm assuming they have a tint to it, a certain side of the political realm, which is kind of interesting that they would think that because
I'm going to say the same thing.
yeah.
I'm
Interesting. I think the
interested.
new albums are always got the loss of Stephen Page to the band was sort of it had a dynamic that it lost, but I understand when we have to move on and things, and it helps Stephen Page because he's done some wonderful solo work too. So good pick, good choice.
Thank you.
So I said I had a surprise for all 9 of you who are watching these shows. And I will tell you this, while I was recording the previous show, I completely forgot what that surprise was. Until several hours before the show where I was panicking. I'm looking through notes. What did I say and why did I say that? God, I have to stop saying stuff that I don't remember. So actually what it is we have there is no Christmas show for this particular show. We are going to be next Thursday doing 5 favorite songs of Christmas. I said I don't have any. I was going to do all the songs I hate for Christmas. Well, it turns out that that's not true. And I kind of knew it wasn't true, but you know, I like to let you believe things. My pick tonight, here's Canadian blues legend, multiple Juno Award nominee and winner in his big band form, Colin James and the Little Big Band. But since this is the last album from the Leaf for this year, I'm going to do not the first album, not the second album, not the third album, but the Christmas album. That's right. Colin James, blues rocker extraordinaire, who technically was Stevie Ray Vaughan of Canada at one point, decides to do Cool Yule by Steve Allen, Christmas Island by Lyle Moraine, Boogie Woogie Santa Claus by Leon Rene, I'll Be Home for Christmas, Buck Ram, Walter Kent, Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Merry Christmas Baby by Lou Baxter and Johnny Moore, Blue Christmas by Billy Hayes and Jay Johnson, Baby It's Cold Outside by Frank Lucero. Thing there is he actually does that vocal with Roseanne Potvin, who is a Montreal Canadian singer-songwriter. Listen to it. She sounds like the original.
Really?
Yep. Shake Hands with Santa Claus by Louis Prima. Please Come Home for Christmas, Charles Brown. And then, you know, it's a standard bluesy big band delivery. I've had the pleasure of seeing him doing this stuff live. The energy in the room is ecstatic. At the Tralfamador Cafe or the Tralf, it's table settings to sit at. And he wondered, nobody sat down on the tables or sat down on the chairs. They were dancing, and he just got so infectious. He leapt from the stage and landed on a table and kept jumping from table to table. Now, I can tell you this, probably not the best idea because something can always go wrong, especially in a Buffalo, New York kind of table.
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills reference. Never mind.
I got it.
There's probably just Brian Setzer and maybe Jimmy Barnes and the Barnstormers right now that'll be doing this kind of stuff. So he got a great voice, blues guitarist. It's got a great feel for this type of music. And then he decides to close the record on Go Where I Send Thee, which is a traditional folk Christmas standpoint of like, talking about Christ. So that's my pick for this as a special. Colin James has multiple records. I would pick them all up if I were you, if you don't know who he is. But if you want to have a good rockin' time for Christmas, that's a great record to put on. You can listen to it start to finish. Unlike most of the rockers who put out Christmas albums that don't, they're doing it for commercial play and not for heart.
It's monsters.
I want to thank my panelists for crossing the northern border again on this chilly evening, except for the balmy 72 in Hawaii. We'll do this again, not in 2 weeks. You'll see us again soon. Please like and comment. Let us know what you're thinking, what you're listening to in Canada. Hey, what you think of these albums after the fact. Hit us up. I don't mind looking back at videos 16 weeks later and putting in comments. Tell your friends, link us. I don't care what you got to do. Go to somebody else's TV and start subscribing. I'd pay you, but I don't know who you are. And YouTube won't tell me.
And man,
Probably
that's
for the
a shameless
best.
plug.
Huh?
May make a shameless plug too for a bonus for everyone.
Okay.
I picked this up as a gift for my mother because she was a giant Rush fan growing up. So this relates to us being in the Leaf.
Yep.
Geddy Lee's new book, My Effin' Life, came out.
Yeah.
And so I currently have that sitting under said tree back there in wrapping paper, or else I would show you. Oh,
Your
don't
mother
worry.
watches the show, you know.
No, she doesn't.
Your mother
She
How
barely,
sad
even,
is this?
she barely even recognizes I'm alive anymore.
Hey,
down
when
here.
I saw the
live in
book,
my
when I
own
saw the
world in
book, I
this
thought it
layer.
was his elfin life.
Anyways, I just found out that came out. So for those of you who watch this, for the tens of you,
Tens of ones.
I
Stop
just
it.
know how
want,
pages
if,
are
in
plural.
case you did not know it was out, that is now a thing. So I'm gonna dive
Awesome.
into it probably after I give it when it's finished, and it relates a little bit to our Canadian folk.
It does. As always, thanks for watching. Happy listening.
Bye.
Sayonara.